Councillors, if in your offices, please come down to Committee Room 1, please. Councillors to Committee Room 1. Okay.
But we just need your TCC.
Okay. Hi, Andra. Okay.
This means you can't go back up.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Can we settle down, please? Please and thank you. My name is Councillor Moyes. I'm the chair.
There's gotta be silence.
Okay.
Excuse me, everyone, can we have quiet in the room? We're going to start the meeting, please. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Councillor Moyes. I'm the chair of the Toronto and East York Community Council. We have quorum. I'm now calling meeting number 11 to order. Welcome to everyone. Today's meeting is being held by video conference and in person at City Hall in Committee Room 1. This meeting is also being live streamed online at youtube.com/Toronto City Council Live. Although we have been meeting in different locations today, the Toronto and East York Community Council would like to acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territories of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. As a Caribbean Canadian, I am committed to continually acting in solidarity with our African, Caribbean, and Black communities seeking freedom and reproductive justice in light of the history and ongoing legacy of slavery that continue to impact our communities across Canada. As part of this commitment, I would also like to acknowledge that not all people came to these lands as migrants and settlers. Specifically, I wish to acknowledge those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly those brought to these lands as a result of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery. In support of the City of Toronto's ongoing efforts to confront anti-Black racism, I pay tribute to those ancestors of African, Caribbean, and Black origin and descent. If you are registered to speak at today's meeting, please listen for me to call your name. I will call speakers in the order they appear on the list. The list of speakers can be viewed online by visiting the Toronto and East York Community Council page at toronto.ca/council and clicking the speakers box for today's meeting. Members, the City Clerk has provided all agenda materials on toronto.ca/council and on CMP, the Clerk's meeting portal. Clerk's IT staff are available to members if you need help with your devices. I also want to remind you to please submit and approve your motions by email. Staff are available at tycc@toronto.ca to help with motions. Are there any declarations of interest on the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? If you have an interest, please raise your hand to unmute your mic and indicate the item number and the nature of the interest. Seeing none, may I have a motion to confirm the minutes of our meeting on January 24, 2024? Deputy Councilor Bravo, all those in favor? Approved. Opposed? Carried. Before we begin the agenda rundown, may I have a motion to add a new business item, TE 11.30 to TE 11.31? Councilor Sachs, you can move that. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Yep. So items T 11.1 to T 11.8 and T 11.10 to T 11.15 are timed items. So we will begin the rundown at item T 11.16. Okay. T 11.16, changes to business improvement area boards of management.
Can I hold that down for a few minutes?
You want to hold? Okay. T 11.17, encroachment appeal, 135 Glen Road. Councilor Sachs.
I am going to defer this matter.
Okay. All those in favor of deferral? Opposed? Carried.
I defer to next meeting.
To the next meeting. T 11.18, encroachment appeal, 40 London Street. Councilor Sachs.
Yes, please also defer that to the next meeting. Last referral.
All those in favor of deferral? Opposed? Carried. T 11.19, there's a speaker on this item. T 11.20, construction staging area, time extension, Markham Street, Mirvish Village, phases 2 and 3. Councilor Sachs.
I have an amendment that, for this matter.
Okay, can the clerk post the amendment?
Send it to you, yes or no? Well, then let's hold it down until it's ready.
Do we have it? Okay. Okay, all those in favor of the amendment? Opposed? All in favor of the items? It's carried. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. TE 11.21, 1404 to 1420 Yonge Street, construction staging area. Councillor Matlow, this was returned from council without recommendations. How would you like to proceed with this item?
Yeah, I'm going to be deferring that again for another cycle.
Okay. All those in favor of deferral? Opposed? Carried. T 11.22, accessible parking spaces, February 2024. Councillor Bravo, you're gonna hold it? Okay, it's Fletcher. T 11.23, pay and display parking various streets.
Amendment, but I don't have the wording yet.
We're gonna be here for the whole day. Okay. T 11.24, pay and display parking various streets. Councillor Bradford.
I'd like to move the staff recommendations, please.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. T 11.25, realignment of parking permit area 5E to exclude and development located at 65 Prince Arthur Avenue. Councillor Sachs.
Move the staff recommendations.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. T 11.26, realignment of parking permit areas 7G to exclude the development located at 741 Broadview Avenue. Councillor Fletcher. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. T 11.27, overnight on-street permit parking amendments, area 14A Alcorn Avenue. Councillor, who's that?
Me.
Councillor Matlow.
I have an amendment that I'll move with the item.
Okay. All those in favor of the amendment? Opposed? Carried as amended. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. T 11.28, appointment to fill a vacancy on the Cecil Community Center Board of Management. Councillor Sachs.
Yes, I move the staff recommendation.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. T 11.29, use of Nathan Phillips Square for various events, May 1st to 2024 to August 31st, 2024. Deputy Mayor Malik.
I believe Councillor Fletcher would like to hold that item.
Okay. T 11.30, Royal Ontario Museum, revolving door and proactive canopy. Councillor Sachs.
Yes, I move the recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. T 11.31, there's a speaker on this item. And that's the rundown. So, 22.
No, Bravo. Councillor Bravo held that?
It was Councillor Fletcher held this one.
Shows Counselor Sachs, but she doesn't have a
We'll change that.
parking spot there.
Okay. So we do have additional new business items to introduce. Councillor Bravo, I believe you have 2 items. One. 3 items, sorry. You do have 3 items, yes you do. Okay, there's the first one. Amending parking regulations on Abel Street between Queen Street West and Sudbury Street. Is that the one? Yep, it is. All those in favor of adding this item? Opposed? Carried. The next item is amending parking regulations on Sterling Road to prohibit standing on the west side. All those in favor of this item? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Parking amendment on Alma Avenue. All those in favor of adding this item? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. I also have an item myself. Is it displayed? Okay. Accommodating affordable housing and retail space at 1 Sumac Street. All those in favor of adding this item? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay. We're good on time here today. Give me a second.
You got lots done there.
Okay, we're going to start from item 1. Naming of an existing public lane, North Street, St. Clair Avenue West, extending between Raglan Avenue and Vaughan Road. Councillor Matlow.
This will be deferred for a cycle.
Okay, deferred for 1 cycle. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. T 11.
It's before 10. Okay, so we can't do number 2
Oh,
because it's
okay.
10,
Yeah.
so
All right. It's a light agenda, which is a good thing.
10 o'clock?
All the other items that, sorry, 1 second. So the items that were held, do we want to discuss any of the items that are held?
Let me see if it's come in.
Item 11.19, 950 King Street West, construction staging area. We do have two speakers on this item. Is Allison Stewart here, Cycle Toronto? Am I going too fast?
Yes,
Okay.
Allison's
Hi,
here.
Allison. Thank you for joining us this morning. You have 5 minutes to put to the committee. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. I was at this committee just last month talking about another development that was asking to use part of a bikeway as their construction staging. This item is seeking once again to use a bikeway for a construction staging for a period of 35 months. So we would like the city, Transportation Services, to work with the developer to find a solution that will maintain safe passage for the cyclists who rely on this route to connect to some important destinations downtown. Really strong, connects people from the north all the way to the south to go to the Bentway, to go on their way to Union Station, to Exhibition Place, to the waterfront, and as well for the destinations in their local area. So really are calling on Deputy Mayor Malik to work with city staff and the developer to try to mitigate that closure and ensure safe passage. And that would be aligned with MTO's Book 7 guidelines for temporary closing of of cycle tracks. So that's really just all I'd like to say on that. Please find a working solution. 35 months is a long time.
Thank you, Allison. Any questions for the deputants? Seeing none, thank you so much for coming in today. It's a nice cup you have.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Adam Rogers. Is Adam Rogers here? Okay, Mr. Rogers online.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, you have 5 minutes to be to the committee. Go ahead.
Great. I'll keep it nice and short. Alice, I put my name on so someone would speak to it, but then Allison got on, so I'll just keep it short. Echoing everything Allison said, we're talking about 3 years to close a pretty essential bike way. I can speak to it directly because I actually often I commute into the city from Etobicoke. I take the Martin Goodman Trail, and then I will go straight up there so I can get to Adelaide. We're talking about closing that route from Martin Goodman to the Adelaide bike lane. So it does really put many of the folks on the west end of the city in a bit of a bind when trying to get across the city in that way. And I get it. Development happens. I don't think anyone's against the development, but we're talking about a 3-year closure, and I feel that often in the past we've been a little bit closure happy for bike lanes, and I think we're trying to make that change away from that, as Allison mentioned. So hopefully we can work with the developers to find some solution to keep some degree of bike access available. I'm assuming there's not going to be follow-up, so I'll just jump off.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Sachs has a question for you.
Yes, what do you think is the alternative here? I certainly agree with you about that cars always have a safe way to go. Cyclists are always the ones who are sacrificed. What physical solutions do you think are possible for this location?
So I will admit it's a tight spot. I would like to hope that I would lean on the developers and the city staff to be able to work together to see if there's a solution. I'm not an expert in construction staging, but the problem is that they're looking at, like, I looked at the route and I noticed they're already closing the laneway. That's part of it. I'm a little bit confused as why they also need to take over the whole basically sidewalk, and they're also closing I should also note they're also closing one of the sidewalks as well. And I get it. There's obviously a reluctance to go onto King Street for obvious reasons, but I hope, I know there, as Allison mentioned, there has been situations where there's been a way to accommodate a bike lane while closing, and it should be noted they're closing both sides of the bike lane because of how they're rerouting traffic. So I can't speak to it. There has been other ways to do it. I know we have the one on Yonge Street that the councillor is working on right now that just got deferred, working with the developers to find a way through. So hopefully we can use other examples. That's the most I can provide on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Malik.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I have a few questions for staff, just echoing the concerns that were raised from community members. These are also concerns and questions that my office has been in dialogue with transportation and planning staff about. So I want to hear a little bit more about the length of the closure and the necessity to close off the bike lane and the pedestrian access on one side of the street. Very familiar with this intersection and the importance of those options to bike and walk safely in the neighborhood. We want to be able to preserve that and to do it in a way that is appropriate for this important development that is bringing affordable housing to the neighborhood. So if staff could please share a little bit more in addressing the concerns about why this is required for the length and in such a, I guess, you know, extreme way.
Deputy Mayor, it's Carly Bowman, the Community Planning Director. Transportation Services staff were just out of the room for one moment discussing, so I'm just referring to Transportation Services. Do you need the Deputy Mayor to repeat her question?
Yeah, I was just echoing the concerns that we heard from the speakers this morning, and also the ones that my office has raised with transportation staff and planning about the rationale for the length of the closure, and also why it is necessary to take over the bike lane and the sidewalk, and what other options are being explored.
Yeah, through the chair. Thank you for the question, Councilor Malik. Nathan Shane with Transportation Services. The developer requires the construction staging area to facilitate the development. Specifically, they'll be using the staging area as a pickup drop-off point for all their deliveries, such as concrete pours, delivery of steel for the building. And when it comes to the occupation itself, we chose to stage on Strawn as opposed to King Street because of the water main and track construction on King just west of Strawn, as well as the TTC streetcar tracks on King Street. So it was a more viable option to stage on Strawn. When it comes to the occupation of the closure rather of the bike lane and the sidewalk, we can revisit the traffic management plan with the developer to avoid closing these facilities. We can look into the option of potentially converting the southbound left turn lane into a shared space for both pedestrians and cyclists.
Okay, thank you very much, and I'm pleased to hear that, and that we can move forward as we heard, and I think as is reasonable to make sure that there is an alternative to what is being presented to us today, and we'll draft a motion to that effect, and I know that we're working on that, and if that can be shared with me, that we'll bring that forward to clerks in the speaking time. Yes, you can hold this item. I don't have the motion yet. Thank you.
Okay, so we're holding item 19. I see it's 10 o'clock, so we can actually go up. So the next item is item T 11.2, 1141 Bloor Street West to 980 Dufferin Street and 90 Croatia Street, official plan amendment, decision approval. Councillor Bravo. Actually, sorry, there are speakers in this item, sorry. Gregory Gilbert from Fitzrovia, are you here? Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. You have 5 minutes to depute.
Thank you, Chair. Am I able to share screen? I just have a very brief presentation.
Okay.
I need the permission, please.
Okay, clerks? Reset your time, so. Okay, there you go. You may begin.
Thank you. Just going to be very brief here, speaking on the ongoing purpose-built rental project along with our partners Hazelview at Bloor and Dufferin. I just want to provide some clarity on this item today. This is related to a technical amendment to the official plan on the property. The property is at Bloor and Dufferin. It's the second largest ongoing purpose-built rental project in the city, or sorry, in the country. Over $100 million of Section 37 benefits, including a TTC tunnel connecting the project to the Dufferin station, a standalone 56-unit affordable housing building. And what I'm speaking about today is the rehabilitation of the Kent School in the lower 2 floors as a community hub, dedicated freehold to the city. As you can see here, here's the school within its context, and the lower 2 floors will be dedicated to the city for a variety of uses. Here is just kind of a rendering of what that will look like once it's constructed. Again, looking from Dufferin at the community hub. So just wanted to, this amendment is satisfying the official plan requirement, which is to provide the city a community hub equal to the 2 lower floors of the Kent Senior Public School, and then it lists an area that's required. Back in 2019, when this project was going through the zoning process, it was not properly scanned, and areas of the building were not properly netted out from that gross floor area. So we're asking for a future approval of an amendment to account for an elevator that we've added, stairs required by the building code, and a variety of historical shafts and walls not previously recognized. And we've also laser scanned it to come up with these accurate numbers. Just on the left here are the zoning drawings from 2019. You can see the walls are not properly drawn and reflected. The stairs are not properly shown. And on the right here, you can see the very large shafts where they used to burn coal in the basement, and heat would come up through the into the classrooms. And then the new elevator shown here, just a quick diagram of that, showing the very large shafts and walls that were not accounted for in the original measurements, all the way down. There's 4 of them. And then there's the original OPA requirement of 2,787 square meters, and we're asking to adjust that down to 2,525 square meters to account for these changes. So just in summary, the building isn't getting any smaller. The space provided to the city isn't getting any smaller. And we're just wanted to provide some clarity on that and the request behind this. So any questions? That's it for me.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from, you do? Okay. Councillor Bravo has a few questions.
Hello, Mr. Gilbert. Thank you for being here. Through the chair to you, I just wanted to say I understand you've been speaking to community members about this discrepancy, and I wanted to ask if you will continue to be having those conversations.
Yes, we will be in conversation with the Build Better Bloor folks. We had a productive call the other day, and we'll continue those discussions.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gilbert. Next is Maureen Fair from the West Neighborhood House. Are you here? You're online, I believe. You have 5 minutes to depute to the committee. You're on mute. You're mute.
Sorry about that.
Yep, we're good.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. I'm Maureen Fair, Executive Director of West Neighborhood House, formerly known as St. Christopher House. We're a not-for-profit community organization serving all age groups in downtown West Toronto. And we're also a tenant in the Bloor Dufferin Community Hub in the Old Kent School. I want to begin my brief remarks with a recognition and appreciation for the thousands of hours of volunteer time by the local residents in the Build a Better Bloor Dufferin group, otherwise known as BBBD. I've worked alongside these folks for years, and I'm always struck by their selflessness and their commitment to community. They're hard and thorough negotiators, but very fair-minded and solution-oriented. I believe they've got the backing of the larger community, and they have the capacity to be part of the problem solving on this. And I think that they should have been notified and brought into this much sooner. At this point, I'd like to ask the Toronto and East York Community Council to defer the decision about this amendment to the agreement. The 2,800 square foot shortfall is a significant departure from the agreed upon 30,000 square feet for community services space. 2,800 square feet is the size of a tennis court or a very large meeting space auditorium that could hold over 300 people sitting and standing. One of the losses to the community with the development of Bloor and Dufferin school lands was several auditoriums and gyms from the schools that had been on that site. We had hoped that Kent School would have had a gym that we could repurpose for community use, but and we were very late getting drawings for the community hub in the Kent School, and the walls are very difficult. They're concrete, they can't be moved, so we can't fit it in there. I did join some of the residents of Build a Better Bloor yesterday morning with Greg and the reps from Hazelview as well to see if we can find a solution that won't delay this developer further. It was a good conversation, and the residents and I are clear that we don't fault the developers for this shortfall. But in my view, a deferral allows the city staff time to assess and report the value of the 2,800 square feet of commercial space that is a shortfall. It gives the developers time to discuss options with their investors and stakeholders. It gives time for the developers to come back to BBBD and hopefully the city to negotiate a solution. And it gives time for city staff and BBBD to figure out who would own and operate the additional 2,800 square feet. West Neighborhood House would be happy to participate in these discussions and negotiations as well. We all want to see the development at Bloor and Dufferin proceed and succeed. I think a 1-month deferral should be sufficient, and indeed a deadline might help to focus the minds during the negotiation. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for deputants? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much. Next up is Lynn Seppin, Build a Better Bloor, Dufferin. Are you here? Okay. You have 5 minutes. Okay. Sorry. You have 5 minutes to depute. Thank you. You may proceed.
Hi, I'm Lynn Seepin, and speaking on behalf of Build a Better Bloor Dufferin. I just want to say, overall, we feel that more should be done to look into alternatives to giving up the 2,800 square feet of community space. Build a Better Bloor Dufferin is a community group, as Maureen mentioned, and we fought hard for the Section 37 benefits in the massive development at Bloor Dufferin to make up for the addition of the far higher density than the official plan allowed. At that time, I think it was supposed to be 12-story buildings, rather than 40 or so. I've lived in the community myself for 40 years. My husband grew up here and attended Bloor and Kent, and my children, and I guess my grandchildren will be. We are sorry to see the schools and land sold, but felt that done with community needs in mind, it might be a good thing. So I joined Build a Better Bloor Dufferin when the schools and land was being sold. And over the years, I've learned a lot about the massive development occurring in the city. BBBD incorporated in order to be a party at the LPAT. We fundraised to get legal assistance, held community meetings in the auditorium at Bloor Collegiate and a couple in the cafeteria, and put in a lot of hard volunteer work. Thanks, Maureen, for pointing that out. We envisioned substantial affordable housing, park space and community service, and cultural space. We didn't fight the enormous density increase, but we aimed to ensure a vibrant community benefits were included in the development. But it took a long time for the city and developers to involve us in their discussions at that time, until the last minute. And the results of the city benefits was so anemic that we bargained for millions of dollars more, and we got it. And with that, we've developed a land trust fund to build non-profit affordable housing and a community and cultural services trust fund. A few years ago, I made a presentation here, and so some of you will remember me, pointing out how not including the community early on in the negotiations was a big mistake. And it seems like we're still following the same course. We feel it's exactly the same. Neither BBD nor the community at large were consulted regarding the proposed amendment. We heard about it about 2 weeks ago from Maureen, who had heard about it, but it wasn't very long ago. And if we had been consulted, we feel the long history surrounding this site and residents' ongoing sense of loss of these cherished public buildings and land would have taken into account that when the schools and lands were sold, not only was it a loss to the students and future students, but the community lost an auditorium, meeting spaces, 2 gymnasiums. A community hub of 30,000 square feet hardly makes up for this loss. And as Maureen pointed out, we're fighting way back for at least 70,000 square feet. Contrary to the planner's report, the Ontario Land Tribunal amendment didn't specify that 30,000 square feet be located in Kent. And also, it didn't it specified a minimum of 30,000 square feet, not up to 30,000 square feet, as the report had said. The planner's report didn't show the fair market value and for the loss of the 2,800 square feet, and doesn't mention alternatives, that they had discussed the alternatives with the developers. This suggests to us a lack of due diligence in their study. Given that this development will bring thousands of new people to the area, placing more strain on the little community space provided, it's difficult to understand how much earlier something wasn't done to ensure that it was protected, the 30,000 square feet. The city has a responsibility to honor this history and to uphold the agreement. We think that given your process, there is still time to correct this rushed and ill-conceived recommendation. In the short time, BBD has had productive meetings with the councillor, planning staff, and developers. And as we have done in the past, we have come to these discussions ready to work together for a beneficial resolution. While time is not allowed for a solution to take shape yet, we look forward to continuing this work and are confident that the developers will come to the table to help that happen.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Seeing none, thank you for coming in today, much appreciated. Our next deputant is Irela Gannon, who's online, Friends of Dufferin Grove Park, BBBD. You have 5 minutes to oops, are you okay? Yeah. Okay. You have 5 minutes to before the committee. Go ahead. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay. My name is Irela Gannon. I'm a longtime member of the community, and I'm a part of a lot of different groups in the area. And I'm part of Building a Better Bloor Dufferin. And I was also part of the initial group of parents, and I hear whispering. I'm sorry. I hear... I was initially a part of the community that the Toronto District School Board initially consulted with about the area, and I represent a lot of people in the area. I'll read my deputation. For the last 20 years, I've been moderating a giant neighborhood group called Friends of Dufferin Grove Park Listserv. It represents more than 1,500 households who live in the direct proximity of this development. I'm also a member of Building a Better Bloor Dufferin and have been volunteering on this project from the very beginning, negotiating with the school board and then the TLC and then the various developers. And of course, the city councillors. My group is very engaged and excited about what is happening, and we've noticed the sign indicating that the community hub space would be diminished by 2,800 square feet. People in the community are very upset, understandably. This represents what we consider to be a major change, not a minor one, especially after years of careful negotiations. We're stunned that no one has measured what that amount of prime land on two major corridors might be valued at. It's surprising that this large discrepancy was not communicated to anyone, least of all the community, directly. We're aware of what we're losing as a neighborhood. This part of the city had more artists and musicians than any other area in the country, as verified by SOCAN and CARFAC. The community hub is important in light of the large number of galleries, art spaces, venues, community spaces we're losing, specifically in this area of the city. When we lost the two schools, Bloor Collegiate and Kent, we lost community access to gyms, auditoriums, and meeting rooms that we accessed often. And right now, even for our group to meet, or our community to meet, or Friends of Dufferin Grove Park, there are very few meeting rooms that we have access to. We also lost green space, even with the installation of Croatian Park. This part of the city was designated as having too little green space for the population. We are increasing the population with this development and decreasing the green space. Our group is very creative and willing to come up with workable solutions. I feel encouraged when I spoke with the developers, the city councillor, and city planning yesterday. We look forward to finding a solution for this amount of space so that we don't actually lose it. This can only happen with time and willingness and to work together. So I really request deference. I'm glad to see that the developer, the city councillor, and our community are very eager to work well together. Our group is kind of unusual in that we are very solutions-based, we're very pragmatic and willing to work with other people and come up with unusual solutions. Yesterday we talked about all different ideas, and it's kind of exciting and visionary to have such a great collection of people in the BBBD group, the CCST group, and the Friends of Dufferin Grove Park, all here engaged in the community. I know that in other parts of the city, it's difficult to get people in the neighborhood engaged, and that's not the case here. We're very eager. I think that taking away this square feet of land that we carefully negotiated and worked really hard with the then developer to come up with. To just wipe it off is kind of disrespectful to the immense dedication to our community. So I really request that at least there's some sort of deference so that we can work with all people involved to come up with a solution that works for everyone, because that's how we got to what is being proposed, and all of us have a right to be proud of that. Thank you. I can still talk. Did anyone hear me?
There we go. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, no, yeah, I was having difficulty. Thank you very much. Any questions for the deputants? Seeing none, thank you for coming in today. We do have one other speaker on the item. Emily Parody, are you here? Is she? Okay. Okay, so Emily Parody is not here. Okay, Councilor Bravo? Yeah, this.
Thank you, Chair. We have just a couple of questions of staff. Hi. Sorry, I'm giving you my back. The first has to do with some of the issues that were raised by the deputant speaking for the community hub tenants and building a better Bloor Dufferin and the associated organizations that have come together around this project, which precedes me here as a councillor. Would you be amenable, willing to perhaps answer some of those questions around land valuation and the calculation piece, the issue raised at the, about the OLT decision through some kind of supplementary report? They're not working well today.
Yeah, we're having faulty mics here today. I don't know what's going on.
It's working over here. One moment, musical chairs.
Through the chair, absolutely. Work with the applicant and BBBD. Thank you.
There's conversations that are clearly happening between the community partners and the developers, and you heard here that Mr. Gilbert from Fitzrovia was willing to continue those conversations, and both sides have seen them as productive in order to find a resolution. Will you also be willing and amenable, and as you have been, to talk to both parties?
Nothing out of this one either.
Here's again.
Yeah.
Through the chair. Ah, here we go. The lights.
Good. All right. Yes, absolutely. Through the chair, we'd be amenable.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I just learned I have an override button here. Any further questions? No? So how would you like to proceed? Yeah, first one. I don't know what's going on.
Amplifying. Here we go. Thank you so much. The divine intervention of the chair has allowed me to speak.
That halo.
So I will be sending this item to council without recommendations, and I have a motion to request that the Director of Community Planning further consult with the applicants and impacted community members, including but not limited to building a better Bloor Dufferin and occupants of the future community hub, and report directly to the March 20th meeting of City Council. I too want to recognize the amazing leadership of the community coming together to imagine what benefits could remain to this neighborhood. These were public lands, school lands, as directed by the provincial government. The Toronto Lands Corporation was created for the school board to be able to manage its capital assets, including properties. Much work was done by the former councillor, the community and planning staff, working with first an original set of owners. Now we have two different companies, Hazelview and Fitzrovia, on site. So it's quite complex, but this is a project that through collective agency here has produced some important amenities, a connection on the southwest side of Dufferin and Bloor via tunnel to Dufferin Station, which we're very grateful for, because if you go to Dufferin and Bloor today, it's difficult to hold the numbers of pedestrians on the sidewalk at this stage. Adding this many more units of housing, which we need, will create more pressure there. A road, a new park, the hub, a childcare center, and these are things that are valuable. The question of the original loss of the public meeting spaces is significant, and I do want to acknowledge the mourning for the loss of Bloor Collegiate Institute, which was resulted by decisions not made, and obviously by any of the parties here. But a lot happened at that place. I can definitely attest to the fact that 30 years ago or more, I started going to important meetings there. The first equity conference of the Toronto District School Board took place there. Historically, this is a place where the convening power really did help to advance a bunch of really important agendas. So that feeling, I think, needs to be acknowledged. Where we are today is that there was, as you heard, a miscalculation made by at the point of sale of the building in question. And now the parties are going to discuss and continue to discuss a way through this. So I appreciate the help of planning staff and the willingness to continue to speak to the community and to the developer, and in addition to clarify some questions through a supplementary report which would accompany this when it comes to council. So thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for the time.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Bravo. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. I was informed that Councilor Sachs has an item I'd like to add to the agenda. Construction staging area, time extension 1 Bloor Street West, Balmuo Street. All those in favor of adding this item? Opposed? Carried. The next item is item TE 11.3, 50 to 64 Merton Street, official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application. We do have deputies on this item. Charlene Cho, are you here? Charlene Cho? Okay. Next person is Lauren Tolston from Diamond Corp. Are you here? Okay, you have 5 minutes to speak to you may begin.
Morning, members of Toronto and East Community Council and members of the public. My name is Lauren Tolstam, and I'm a Director of Development with Diamond Corp. Diamond Corp is the owner and developer of 50 to 64 Merton Street in partnership with Altera. I'm representing 2 items today for 50 to 64 Merton. The first, which we are now on, is item TE 11.3, and the second, for the same project, was adopted at Toronto Preservation Board last week, is item TE 11.13. First, I would like to support city staff's recommendation for both items. Second, I will give a brief overview of the project. The site is located within an easy walk of Davisville subway station, located on Merton Street, just east of Yonge. The project has evolved from our initial application and achieves a number of city building objectives, particularly heritage conservation and office replacement. We will be delivering a minimum of 1,700 square meters of office, which represents 75.9% replacement, and delivering 581 units in 45 stories. Part of the site was home to the Girl Guides of Canada headquarters, built in 1962 and designed by Carmen Corneal. Our proposal, designed by Hariri Pontarini Architects, respectfully conserves the front volume of the Girl Guides building, while delivering office on the second floor and residential units above. The official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment before you will support the realization of the project. I'd like to extend our thanks to city staff and to Councillor Matlow to help get us here today. We hope Community Council agrees and supports both items for 50 to 64 Merton. I'm available to answer any questions the committee may have on either item. Thank you.
Any questions for deputant? Seeing none, thank you. Councillor Matlow?
That's not on.
What's going on?
I move staff recommendations.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. Next item is T 11.4, 1365 to 1375 Yonge Street, official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application. We do have deputants on this item as well.
Just there's some work that's being done, and we'll come back to it a little later.
Do you want people to depute on it though? Or?
Sure. Given that people expected it at this time, they can depute, but I'll hold the item down until later.
Okay, so I'll just not depute that. Okay, let's get to these deputations. T 11.14. Alexander Logan, are you here? You have 5 minutes to depute before the committee. Go ahead.
This is about 1365 Yonge Street, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you for allowing me to come to participate. My name is Alexander Logan. I'm a resident near the building site. I'm coming here to discuss or bring forth 2 issues. One is the heights, and the second is the type of units in the building. With respect to heights, the city staff presented to the community on the 4th of October 2023 at a community consultation meeting. In their slides, which I numbered 8, provide an overview of the 2021 proposal indicating a 17-story building to the height of 92 meters, which even then appears to exceed the zoning bylaws maximum height of 70 meters, which is slide 22 in their presentation. Taking a crude measure of height by the number of floors, I recognize it is crude, the average would be 5.14 meters or 17.7 feet. In the overview of the application of 2023, which discussed the plan of May 2023 at the presentation, the slide number 9, the applicants proposed a 50-floor story building, a building height of 162.4 meters. This would give an average height per floor of 3.25 meters or 10.7 feet. This represents a 40% reduction in the height per floor from the 2021 approved plan. As an aside, the slide 18 of the presentation highlighted the point that new buildings will transition towards lower scale areas in the downtown core. The average new building in the downtown core is around 50 floors, which is the current height. So therefore, the current building doesn't seem to be in the this transition zone that the city highlighted. In slide 24 of the presentation, entitled Overview of Current Applications. The building height is now 136 meters, excluding MPH, which I do not know what that means. If that height refers to the living space of the building, then the average per floor height is 2.72 meters or 8.9 feet. This represents a 50% reduction in the height per floor from the 2021 report. With respect to height, I have 3 questions that I would like to put forth. One is the current zoning bylaw. What is the current zoning bylaw for the building? The second is, what is the current height of the building? 162.4 meters, 159.9 meters, most recent submitted application in the 27th of October, or 136 meters. It's unclear to me, at least, which is the height of the building. What is the final question, and I think is the most important, is what is the average floor to ceiling height of the proposed units? In other words, they seem to be shrinking the heights of the individual units in order to have more units in their building. The other issue is the type and number of units in the building. In the 2021 report, there was 239. In the May 2023, there were 655. And most recently, according to Mr. Goldberg's letter to the city on the 30th of October 2023, it's 699. The types of units in the past 8 months has shown a 100% increase in bachelor or studio units to 9.4% of the total, a 19.4% absolute increase in the one-bedroom units, and
Please gather your thoughts.
sorry.
Yeah, your final thoughts, please. Your
Sorry?
final thoughts. Your final thoughts.
Okay,
5 minutes is up.
the question is, does the city have any bylaws related to the types of units in a new building?
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the deputants? Seeing none, thank you for coming in today.
Thank you.
Paul Kravitz from AVRA Avoca Vale Residents Association. You're online, okay? You have 5 minutes to depute before the committee.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead. You have 5 minutes. Mr. Kravitz?
Hello?
Hi, we could hear you. Go ahead. You have 5 minutes to depute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm on a cell phone, so I'm sorry about the image and quality of sound. I'm speaking on behalf of the Avoca Vale Residents Association, a residents association centered around Avoca, Pleasant Boulevard, and Rose Hill, directly affected by this application. This project grew out of a previously approved 17-story seniors building, which was a very different type of use, which had seniors amenities per floor, and the form of that building was a slab form, something not recommended by the city's tall building guidelines, one of the guidelines used in the planning framework of the city. The new applicant, the developer who's chosen to produce this 50-story building, simply extruded this previously approved form into a 50-story building. What this means is that you have in their planning the first 19 floors of a building, which are over half the length of a football field in a slab building form. And then from floors 20 to 50, just under half the length of a football field. This is an unprecedented type of building. I don't think the city has anything like this. We believe it'll set a very dangerous precedent. I don't think there's anything like it, as I said, and precedent is what the planning consultants, the Berg Group, and other planning consultants always put forward as their reason for ever-increasing heights of buildings. They cite approved buildings saying this one's 40 or 50 stories and I want X more. Curiously, however, these previous precedents and approved and unapproved buildings, proposed buildings, cited by the consultants are absent from several of their key studies. Wind modeling only shows the building, doesn't show other adjacent buildings, shadow studies, traffic. Our letters, which we've produced 2 of, explain this. The site is accessed off Pleasant Boulevard, a barely 13-foot wide laneway, hardly large enough to put a single lane of traffic and even a sidewalk along it for the first 100 feet. Our association, in the only public meeting on this project, put forward our offer to the developer to work with them to try to find a solution of a point tower, and also to have their engineers visit the site, their traffic consultants, and see the impossibly difficult conditions to access this site. Those offers were turned down. The city is continually and rightfully investing money in its public realm and its streetscapes and its parks like David Balfour or like Yonge Street, but at the same time is approving projects such as this, which produce gloomy, dark, sunless, overly windy conditions at grade. So a developer saying, I'm giving you 5 more meters of public realm or 2 more meters of public realm is meaningless if people can't walk, stand, linger, and take advantage of that. It is a self-defeating process to approve these types of projects and at the same time be investing properly in our public realm. I would conclude by saying to planning staff, council members, you are the stewards of our city's physical fabric and livability. And the decisions you make will affect the quality of life that we leave and the quality of the city that we leave to our children and grandchildren. Our association would respectfully urge you to send this very poorly considered project back to the drawing board, where input of our association and others who this affects can be incorporated. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you. Any questions to deputants? Councilor Matlow has a question for you.
Oh, my microphone doesn't work. I don't have a microphone that works.
He said you're good. You got the thumbs up.
Oh, it's a matter of the light not coming on rather than the microphone.
Yeah.
Hi, Paul, it's Josh.
Hi, Josh.
Hey, you've certainly made your position known today. This has been going on for quite a while. Have you at any point, or your association, made an effort to have this conversation with the applicant, for example, or kind of try to mitigate some of the concerns that you've had? Because I'm admittedly just trying to figure out what to do with the feedback that you're providing at this sort of very late juncture.
We provided 2 letters for you, Josh. One was, I think, in October. We spoke at the public meeting, spoke of these objections, didn't have all the studies to support some of the issues we've raised, that these studies are riddled with problems. We reached out to the developer. We offered them and their letters to your planning staff. So it has been known. The developer in their public meeting spent a great deal of time talking about pickleball courts understandably, rather than 50-story towers. But the objections were made, the offers were real and presented, and we've heard nothing.
And have you considered the fact that I appreciate that, Paul. Have you considered the fact that given its very close proximity to the subway, that, and especially in light of how provincial policy has changed over the past couple of years, that even if we denied it today, for example, it would most likely be performative at the most, given that it would be approved either here or the tribunal. I'm trying to get real sort of about sort of what we'd actually achieve.
Well, we recognize that sites that are close to a subway are prime candidates, and we're not opposed to development, are prime candidates for development. There's no question about that. There are two fundamentally tricky issues on this site. One is the access off Pleasant Boulevard. You can't even get a driveway and a public sidewalk past it, and it is the access as we understand it, unless the planning has changed, for emergency vehicles, moving trucks, everything else coming in on a 100-foot wide, 100-foot long piece of sidewalk alleyway. The applicant, I understand, obviously can't affect the areas that they don't own, and they've increased the area in front of their building into a legitimate width. That isn't the issue. The issue is this going to work or is it dangerous? The other issue, major issue, is the form of building. And we identified that right off the bat. They simply took a seniors building, which has on the same floor amenities for seniors and is used as an extruded building form, and just propped it up 50 stories. We're not opposing the idea that there be a development. We're opposing the design. And we've offered, and we did early on, as soon as we met the developer, let's work with you. This is a fundamentally flawed, intellectually lazy application in terms of how it's been done. It takes an approved site, and we think that was a strategy, obviously a strategy, to build an approved project. So we're not opposed to it, but we use the term under the cover of providing housing, and others can speak to whether or not 650 square foot units over $1 million represents family housing. That's a whole other issue for a whole other day.
Okay, Paul, Councilor Matlow has one further question.
We would like to be able to craft a better development.
Okay, so if there's an opportunity between now and City Council to meet with the applicant to try to have a constructive discussion, would you be open to that?
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks, Paul.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no other questions on this item. Kathy McDonald, are you here? Okay, you have 5 minutes to depute before the committee. Kathy is from Deer Park Residents Group. Okay, you have 5 minutes.
Is it on? Okay. Yeah. So Chair Moisey and members of the Community Council. So I'm here today as president of the Deer Park Residents Group. Our Yonge and St. Clair intersection area is certainly undergoing major changes. We have 9 applications and only 1 building so far under construction. And naturally, residents are concerned about the changes. But we need to make sure that all the new development really does strengthen and support our community. I understand that the level of density and height is basically beyond the city control. But we do have a framework plan for the intersection area that sets out where the highest buildings go, about pedestrian routes and open space and other things to help enhance our community. Our residents were part of the working group that met over the first application and helped establish how that project can contribute to the community, particularly the sort of laneways and laneway enhancements, improving sidewalks, and having commercial uses. And then the new application further enhances many of these aspects of the proposal. But the building, of course, is really high. And the big new issue for all the high buildings is what about wind conditions and how can they be modified? We're working on improving the wind conditions at the intersection of Yonge and St. Clair already. So the report only says there are no dangerous wind conditions. So this is quite inadequate for public information. So from the planner, I learned that, in fact, the building had been shifted south because of wind. The tower part was shifted south because of wind conditions, and that there was going to be further work done in different areas at the site plan stage. Sort of incidentally, we are also to be involved at the site plan stage to for the Weddington project to deal with the details of the wind abatement. I guess the further thing to note is that there will be a community benefits contribution as part of this project, and given that the Vale of Avoca ravine is in such poor condition and really need of major improvements, we believe that the funding should go to that. So our recommendations are three. One, that representatives of the Deer Park Residents Group and other nearby residents be consulted at the site plan stage of the application to ensure that there are appropriate wind conditions at the street level. And also from the planner, I learned that there's ideas of improving the facade of the building to reduce wind conditions, which is a good idea. And secondly, that given my concern about the lack of any information about this critical wind problem, that the reports on applications in our area include information about the wind study and what the issues are and what the project will do to address them. And also, I sort of noted that they did the wind study seemed to be done based on what was existing now, but given the major changes coming to the area, is going to be very different in the future, and that the wind study should really look at both what's the existing condition and what will be the issues when the area gets more built out that we need to be thinking about. And then the final recommendation is that the community benefits funding for the application be allocated to improvements to the Vale of Avoca ravine.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the deputant? Seeing none, thank you so much for coming in today. And the final person we have on the list here is Vince Ciroli, is online. You have 5 minutes to depute before the committee. Do we have him? Mr. Ciroli, online, are you there? Okay, I guess he's not here. Councillor Matlow?
Is the microphone on?
Yep.
I just can't tell by the light. So I'm going to move the item to council without recommendations. There are a few issues that clearly need to be resolved. First of all, I want to make sure that Paul Kravitz and the Avoca Vale residents have an opportunity to sit down with planning staff and the applicant to address issues that are important to them. I say this, though, to also just recognize the reality of any expectations that we have. This is in very close proximity to a subway. There's going to be a large development there. That is the reality. It would either be approved here or elsewhere. But where there are reasonable issues that need to be improved on, we need to sit down and make sure that those voices are heard and problems are addressed. I also want to recognize Kathy McDonald and the Deer Park Residents Association, who are raising specific issues with quality of life, wind concerns, things that we can work on together. And I want to make sure that, Kathy, your voice is at that table as well. So we're going to create that opportunity for that table between now and City Council. Councillor Sachs has raised an important issue as well, offline, but I want to recognize her advocacy. This is a moment of leverage where we can look ahead, even if it's years ahead. I don't know when the development will actually occur, but we want to make sure that we mitigate any possibility that the bike lane in Yonge Street will be interrupted. And that way we can work with them to ensure that there's an amendment coming forward to preclude that possibility. So all in all, this will go to council, but in between now and then, we're going to pull everybody together and hopefully have a really productive and positive conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Matlow.
I just want to say thank you.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. The next item is TE 11.5, 2161 Yonge Street, official plan amendment application. We do have deputants on this item. Is Louis Tinker here? Okay, you have 5 minutes to depute before the committee. Go ahead.
Good morning, Chair, members of Community Council. My name is Louis Tinker from Bousfields. This is Peter Jakovic, also listed as a deputant from Tribute, who is the applicant as well. And we're here today just to endorse and support the council, the recommendations from city staff, and to thank them for showing leadership on this particular application, and also just to make ourselves available in case members of Community Council have any questions of the application.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to make any comments, Mr. Jakovic?
Good morning, Chair. Councillors, thank you. I'd like to just say thank you to staff and the Councillor's office as well in terms of the consultation that's happened and the residents associations. We've had, in addition to the public consultation, we had a couple informal meetings with Quantum, Towers, Art Shop, and Cedra, and that the information that we received back was very helpful and useful in terms of crafting and shaping this application that's before you. So once again, we're available. Peter Jakovic, for the record, 12 Fabian Place, Toronto, and I'm here on behalf of Tribute Communities.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Councillor Sachs, go ahead.
Mike, yes, okay, great. Peter, thank you for coming. Will you please give your formal commitment that you will not be applying for permission to block any part of Yonge Street in order to construct this building?
Thank you for that question, Councillor. We've developed, are you referring to the construction management?
Yes, because what we keep having is developers come here for zoning and then they come back later and say, well, you have to let us block the bike lane because we have to build our building. So it's Yonge Street.
No, it's Sudan.
Councillor, just for your information as well, I think we've already approved the construction management plan. There was 3 phases that were approved previously, and we're committed to maintaining that plan. So I do believe we've limited the construction activity to Sudan, and we provided for the pedestrian accessibility on Yonge, and we do not envision any further impediment that would prohibit the current condition, which I think does include 2 active lanes going northbound. And I don't believe there was a dedicated bike lane at that point.
Not yet.
We'll work with staff to ensure that the construction management is amended accordingly if need be.
All right. Okay, all right, thank you.
Go ahead.
I need to pose this as a question, but it'll be admittedly rhetorical. I just wanted to ask you if you'll consider that the way that we've seen you work with the community, along with potential even increased benefits to the community, has been superb. And I hope that you'll also consider that as we move forward with any further construction management plans that need to evolve, that we'll continue working with you to make sure that we mitigate the impact on Yonge, and I hope that you will consider our gratitude, because that is a model of what we expect from a partner.
Appreciate it, Councillor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for coming in today. Councillor Matlow?
So I will move the staff recommendations.
Favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. T11.6, 211 to 219 Gerrard Street East, zoning amendment. We have one deputant, Arthur Grabowski. Are you here? Okay, you have 5 minutes to appear before the committee. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And who's with you?
I'm joined by Yuri Seneke of Dundee Homes. He's our client.
Okay.
So I'll be very brief here. I'm with the Planning Partnership. We are the land use consultants for Dundee Homes. The application was actually submitted in August of 2023 at a modest 7 stories in height, 39 purpose-built rental units, of which there's an affordable housing component as well. I'd just like to thank the efforts of staff, the councillor, to move this application very quickly through the process and to be here before you today. We're available to answer any questions as needed, and once again, thank you.
Okay, thank you for coming in. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you. I'm going to move staff's recommendations on this item. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Next item is (11.7) Toronto Metropolitan University, TMU, zoning bylaw amendment application. We do have the deputants on this item. I see that Chris Drew is here, TMU alumni and TMU planning student. Is Chris Drew here? Here we go. You have 5 minutes, Chris.
Okay. Hello, committee. We're going to be sharing our time. My name is Chris Drew, and I'm joined here by Ijubo Jama. And I first want to mention I'm a Toronto Centre constituent, so hello to the chair. Great to be here today. I came to Toronto first in 2002 to start my journey at Toronto Metropolitan University as a planning student, and it's been a wonderful time in Toronto. And one of the most passionate things I do right now that relates to the item TMU is being a mentor as part of our alumni association. I've been a mentor for many years, and this year I was paired with an amazing fourth-year planning student who is starting her planning career journey. And as we were chatting, she mentioned that she's watched online but has never been in person to a council or committee meeting, and this is also her first deputation. So I said, well, here's a great thing to depute on because it relates to TMU, and it's a great example of modernizing zoning bylaws for a great public institution like Toronto Metropolitan University. So we're really happy to be here, and I was mentioning to the student of how many TMU planning alumni work for the City of Toronto as planners, and it's wonderful to be part of the alumni community at TMU. So I'm in favor of the staff recommendations. I'm a cyclist, so it's great to see references to bike parking. That's how I got to TMU for most of my time when I was a student there. Part of the time I was commuting from Thornhill, but most of the time I was commuting from Kensington Market to TMU by bike. And the staff report mentions the TMU master plan. I was actually a student when the master plan was going through the consultation process, so it's great to see a reference to it. I also want to give a big shout out to Jamie Atkinson, the lead staff member. He's an excellent example of the amazing public service staff at the City of Toronto. I've been speaking with Jamie over many years on different topics. He's always returned my phone calls, responded to my emails. So it was great to attend the community consultation meeting for this project. So that's all of the piece I was going to mention. I'm now going to turn it over to Ijama.
Good morning.
Is the microphone on? It's on? Okay. Okay, good morning, members of council and members of the public. My name is Ijabo Jama. I live in North Etobicoke in the Rexdale neighborhood. I'm a student at Toronto Metropolitan University in my final year of the Urban and Regional Planning program. Excited to be here. It's a great learning opportunity. Excited to start my career as well in Toronto. With regard to the application, I think it'll be beneficial to TMU because it'll modernize and simplify zoning regulations on the campus and bring it in conformity with the official plan. It'll update it to current citywide zoning bylaw 569-2013 as amended and towards one bylaw of record. It'll also ensure consistent initiatives like the removal of minimal required parking and allow for more building in the future. Overall, I support the staff recommendations in the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions for the deputants? Seeing none, thank you for coming in today.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
I'm going to move staff's recommendation. Oh, there's another, sorry. I'm jumping ahead of myself here. Ian Graham from R.E. Millward and Associates, are you here?
I am here.
Okay, you have 5 minutes to depute.
Thanks, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Ian Graham. I'm the director at R.E. Millward and Associates. I'm a planning consultant with them, representing TMU on this application. I was involved with the City of Toronto's harmonized zoning bylaw 11 years ago. Councillor Perks will remember. And one of the things that was created out of that process were a lot of areas of the city, especially the former City of Toronto, which were not brought into the new zoning bylaw, especially university areas and other institutions. So this is kind of a professional and a personal turnaround to have this area of the city now integrated into the new city zoning bylaw. From the university's perspective, there's no new development here. This is about basically updating the rules so that they're integrated within the downtown plan and the official plan and how it exists between the institutional designations as well as the mixed-use designations, and introducing a concept for a campus, because you have a campus here of a university that's integrated with the downtowns of the city. So one that speaks to transportation issues such as bicycles and loading and maximum parking spaces as opposed to minimum, which is what the previous bylaw dealt with. So it was also harmonization and updating, and I'm very excited about this. And I would also like to echo that staff have worked diligently on this process with us for the last year. Jamie Atkinson, Carolyn Samuel, just to name a few, who have been very, this is an area that they typically don't work on because they're in the zoning section. So to come here to committee on a rezoning application is a bit new for them. And they've done a wonderful job. We're bringing in 26 properties of the downtown area of the city into the new zoning bylaw. And I really hope that you support this. And I'm here if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you so much. Any questions for the deputant? Seeing none, thank you for coming in today.
Thank you.
This is my item, so I'm going to move staff's recommendations on this. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Tech just informed me that the lights on your mics are not working, but they do control them from there. They do turn them on and off, okay? Thank you, sir. Great city staff as always. TE 11.8, 929 Queen Street East, official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application. We do have deputants on this item. We have one deputant. David McKay, are you here? From MHBC Planning. You're online, you have 5 minutes to depute. Go ahead.
Good evening, good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is David McCott, a registered professional planner with MHBC. We have reviewed the staff report and we're in favor of the recommendations. And I'm simply here to thank staff and the councillor for moving this rental housing project forward and look forward to it becoming a reality sooner than later. And appreciate the support and would be happy to answer any questions that council may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for deputant? Seeing none, Councillor Fletcher, that's your item.
Sorry, remind me the item.
11.8.
Thank you. Yes, I'm just going to move that to
It's going to be moved to council. Are you moving staff's recs or?
Yes, staff recs.
Okay.
Staff recs, yes, thank you.
All those in
And
favor?
there is at council, I'll be making the construction management motions and everything else. I'll have those on at council.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wonderful. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item is T 11.9, 363 to 391 Yonge Street, Class 4 Noise Area Classification. That's mine. There's no deputants on this item. Sorry? Anyone in the room wants to speak on this item? No deputations, okay. I'm going to move staff's recommendations on this item. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. T 11.10, 2079-2111 Yonge Street, 9-11-21 and 31 Hillsdale Avenue East and 12 to 18 Manor Road East. Official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application. Councilor Matlow. Anybody here to depute on this item? Seeing none, Councilor Matlow.
I move staff recommendations.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. T 11.11, 1437 to 1455 Queen Street West, zoning amendment application. Any deputies here want to speak on this item? Seeing none. Councilor Brooks.
So I will move the staff recommendations.
Yeah, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. T 11.12, 2681 Danforth Avenue, official plan and zoning bylaw amendment. Councilor Bradford. Any deputants in the room? Seeing none. Councilor Bradford. Where's Councilor Bradford? Okay, we will hold this item until he returns. Item 12. T 11.13, 50 Merton Street, alterations and demolition of a heritage attribute to a designated heritage property and authority to enter into heritage easement agreement. Any deputants on this item? Seeing none. Councilor Matlow.
So I'm going to move to approve the staff recommendations, and I just want to share something with you of curiosity and interest. So this is the original Girl Guides of Canada building.
No.
And I want to acknowledge both the applicant and heritage planning staff for working out such a wonderful resolution. If you walk by the building on Merton Street, you'll see that it looks a little different. It almost looks like there's this sort of bunker out front. And it is a bunker, but it's not the bunker that you'd often think of. It's a cookie bunker. And it literally was where they would store hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Girl Guide cookies that they would then go and sell. So together, the applicant and heritage planning staff have saved the cookie bunker. And I appreciate that. May we have many cookies to come. Thank you.
It's true. And you're moving staff's recommendations on this item, I'm assuming?
Yes,
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. We'll go back to item 12. Councilor Bradford's here. 2681 Danforth Avenue official plan and zoning amendment application. Councilor Bradford?
No speakers, deputants.
Are there no deputants?
I'd just like to move the staff recommendations, please.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Next item is T 11.14. Inclusion of 10 properties on the Heritage Register 143, 155, 161, 167 Main Street, and 154 and 164 Main Street, and 2001 to 2007 Gerrard Street East. Are there any deputants on this item? Seeing none, Councilor Bradford.
No deputants?
No deputants.
Okay, I'll couple quick questions for Heritage.
Go ahead.
With respect to the properties that are in front of us here at Main and Gerrard, is the intention of Heritage Planning to ensure the complete preservation of these properties as they stand today?
Through the chair, Putting these on the Heritage Register isn't about preventing development, it's about managing development, so that we can consider an appropriate form of development on this site. So putting them on the Heritage Register doesn't mean they will be conserved in their current form. We support development and growth and change taking place here, and this isn't going to be preventing that. However, if they are not put on the Heritage Register, we would not be able to include any conservation in any future development.
Understood, thank you. What strategies is Heritage Planning undertaking, I guess, during the development application process to ensure that heritage objectives can be copacetic or met with housing objectives, development objectives, and making sure that heritage preservation is done in a way where projects are still financially viable, particularly on like a mid-rise form that we would expect to see at Main and Gerrard?
Through the chair, Heritage Planning will be working with all of our community planning colleagues and other colleagues to ensure appropriate development takes place on this site. Heritage is one of the many considerations that have to be taken into account when development takes place, and this will be one of the many things that are considered.
Okay, with that in mind, could you give me sort of an example of the type of heritage preservation strategy that you might be employing on a site like this with this type of development size scale at this particular intersection, recognizing that this is a PMTSA?
Through the chair, developments when we try to conserve heritage buildings, we often try to support development where we keep the front facade and we have growth and height step back from the front so that the form, the street scale, the street wall of the heritage buildings are retained and integrated into new developments on the site.
Okay, that's all my questions, thanks.
And what would you like to do with it?
I'm going to move the staff recommendations here, just with a couple brief comments. This site in particular, you know, there's no denying that there's a rich history here at Main and Gerrard. This was the village of East York prior to its incorporation of a municipality back in 1888. There was a lot of good stuff going on there, and how the buildings on both the east and west side of Main Street hang together provide a really important historical contextual reference point. But while we have properties here that are rich in history, I don't think that that should dictate that this intersection should be, you know, encased in amber for years to come here. And that's especially true at a time when we have a housing crisis and a housing shortage, and this intersection falls within a PMTSA. So, you know, for those reasons, I want to be crystal clear about the intention here behind the city's proposal to list. We all understand why we need to list right now. That needs to be done prior to a complete application on a site. And that there's likely the city's intention to designate these properties. But this will be an important test for heritage and for city planning to make sure that projects that are much needed with respect to housing supply at a transit node like this have a financially viable pathway forward when you're only doing something 6, 8, 10 stories in that vicinity, that these projects can still go forward, maintain the important heritage attributes, but that it's not a showstopper for the housing that we need, particularly at an intersection like that. So, you know, I'll point just up the street at 286 Main Street. There was a development that came forward, and there was a house, you know, that was a heritage house, a heritage asset that was taken down brick by brick and moved, you know, 5 meters to the north at a cost of $1.3 million. And that's nice, and it stands there today proudly. It's lovely, we all like that. But I believe that was a 32-story building, so you're able to amortize those costs over those units, you're able to do it. But in terms of the size and scale of the development articulated for this particular location, that response wouldn't be financially possible. So this is the challenge and the test to heritage planning and to city planning to make sure that we can come up with a response that reflects the heritage here at Main and Gerrard, the context and how these buildings hang together, but also doesn't kill housing projects. And it will be back in front of this committee before any designation, and we'll have another opportunity to weigh in. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. So you're moving staff's recommendations, right? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Councillor Bradford. The next item is TE 11.15, front yard parking appeal, 63 Hammersmith Avenue. We have one deputant, David Jankovic. Are you here? Okay, you have 5 minutes to depute before the committee.
Would you be able to pull up the submission that I made? There's a survey.
We are not able to do that. Any material that you have, you could
No,
use.
but I submitted it to.
Yeah, councilors can view the material online. We have access to it on our computers, our CMP.
Oh.
But you can speak to it.
I was unaware of this because, like, in the website where I was able to be deputized, they said, do you want to attach materials, right? So I was under the assumption that the materials would be attached and they'd be able to be projected.
So you speak, I can't hear you.
No,
Yes.
I said I was assuming that the materials would be able to be projected because I submitted them. You can't, can you hear me now?
I could hear, yeah, yes.
Oh, okay, no, I was under the assumption that the materials would be able to be projected because I submitted them through the website.
One sec.
Yes, please, yeah, that would be great.
I think once you place it down, it will work. There we go. Okay. So you have 5 minutes to depute.
First of all, I'd like to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to speak, and I appreciate your time. I've owned the property at 63 Hammersmith Avenue for almost 4 years and lived in the property for about 1.5 years with my family, and would also like to continue to do so pending the outcome of this appeal. I want to make clear that the original intention for the parking pad was to accommodate an electric car, which I've been planning on purchasing in the next few months. I'm going to give an overview so that you can understand the weird technicality that has got me to this council meeting. I've met all the conditions to apply for the parking pad: no trees, no curb cuts, as access comes from a mutual drive, and my mutual drive laneway is undersized where a car won't fit through it to get to the rear yard parking. So I went through the polling and balloting process and spoke with all the neighbors. The challenge with my street is that it's filled with quadplexes and sixplexes. So there were a lot of favorable residents who own the multi-unit homes who did not receive the ballots. Also, I've never done this process before, and I wasn't aware of the possibility to have a notary come to each property and to verify the new ballots. There were ballots that were never filed that were in my favor because they never received them. Also, I had issues communicating with the city to flush out all these important details, and it was very challenging to get a hold of anybody at the city to figure out those details. Also, I wanted to be conscious of not bothering residents and tenants in an unbearable manner. So therefore, I was stuck between a rock and a hard place. I did get an opportunity to speak to some councillors who are not in favor of my application a few months ago, and their number one concern was always the environment and the Toronto storm sewer system, which I agree with wholeheartedly that it's cost a lot of money and there's a lot of upgrades that need to be done to that. So I provided a site plan with a solution, and if you can refer to the site plan, what I propose is at the back there is a parking pad which can't be accessed because the width of the shared drive is not wide enough. So that is 223 square feet that I would get rid of and turn into greenscape. And I've changed the proposal for the front from what transportation proposed to basically have a net hardscape of 206 square feet. So the net gain would be 17 square feet of green space. And again, I have a combustion engine car. This lease is coming up, and I'm also advocating for the environment. I would like to switch to an electric car and therefore would need a front pad parking to charge my electric car. I kindly ask that this technicality of spoiled ballots be very carefully considered by the councilors, and the fact that I had to go through and track down owners of multiplexes. So the ballot count was 34 in favor, 25 opposed, and 9 spoiled ballots. And from the research that I've done into the committee process and previous appeals I've watched, there seems to be a common theme of not dealing with the facts of each case. And I respectfully ask that it's acknowledged that I followed the process that my ward has granted me, and that my appeal is judged on its merits, not on ideological grounds, as the forum doesn't provide an opportunity for back and forth. Now, my proposal for a net gain of 17 square feet of green space would be tied to the site inspection by transportation that would need to take place anyway. I do know the odds are stacked against me because of the political headwinds of the committee, but I ask you please focus on the merits of my appeal to see this as a net positive. And the positives is that there will be more green space. I'm getting an electric car, so there's one less combustion vehicle on the road. There is no curb cuts as access is gained from a mutual drive, and therefore no street parking is affected. And there are no trees on my property, and therefore no trees are affected. Also, if I had added a front garage, I, as of right, would have been able to do a curb cut and been entitled to front pad parking, which negatively would have affected street parking. I'm hopeful for a fair and merit-based review by council, and that parking is bad, hard stop is not automatically assumed. What I'm asking for is a nuanced review of the facts of my particular case, and to take into consideration that parking is an overwhelming norm on my street and in the neighboring streets. I'm not the outlier. I've walked the streets in my neighborhood, and the vast majority have front pad parking, and all the remaining have adequate space to gain access to rear parking. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Matlow has a questions for you. Go ahead. Sure.
So, thank you for your deputation. I just want to make sure that I've got the facts clear.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not having to cut down a single tree.
No.
And you don't need to have a single new curb cut created to accommodate you at all.
Correct.
And did you say earlier that you're also you're proposing a plan that would actually leave the site with net increased softscaping to support our environmental goals?
Correct, yes. As you can see from the survey, there's a existing pad that's been there for, I don't know how long, 80 years, that serves absolutely no purpose. So by getting rid of that and leaving the right of way where it is, you can see what the calculations are. It's a 17 square foot increase in greenscape.
And you want to purchase or lease an electric vehicle, but the city doesn't have a policy to allow for cables to go across the sidewalk as of yet, or any way to really accommodate your ability to do so.
No.
So you described a technicality earlier. So yeah, I'm not hearing any arguments regarding the environment that would preclude you from getting the parking pad approved. So it was a poll. Could you just say again, you described some spoiled ballots. Could you just describe that again?
Yeah, so the results came back and it was a positive poll. It was 34 in favor, 25 against, and then 9 spoiled ballots, which took it to, well, by the way that they calculated, 50%. So there was a lot of confusion there. This information was sent to me at the beginning of a long weekend, so I was stewing on this for 4 days or 3 days until I came to the city and asked for an explanation.
So along with having no adverse impact on the environment or any of the other criteria that you were expected to meet, you even won the popularity contest. It was simply just the threshold wasn't met for
Correct.
Responses.
Yes, because they want 50% of all ballots returned plus 1. So I was 1 vote off or 1 ballot off.
Thank you.
thank you. Councillor Bradford?
Thanks very much. Appreciate the deputation. Just wanted to go back to the parking at the back of the property. So that is not accessible for a modern vehicle because of the width between the two houses?
No, that was one of the requirements to be able to even get to the place where I was able to do polling.
Right.
That transportation came out and they measured the width of the mutual laneway to get to the rear, and it didn't meet the threshold.
Okay. And then just again, to confirm, the parking that's shown in the back here on the drawing, that is a legally existing parking space?
Correct.
Okay, and if you're approved today, that will be removed and you will make the backyard 100% permeable softscaping?
Yes, that would be greenscape in the back. That's the proposal.
That's all my questions. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no further questions, Councillor Bradford? Zero item.
Staff.
Sorry, questions of staff, my apologies. Councillor Perks, go ahead.
So I want to make sure I understand the facts of the green space properly. In the staff recommendations, you're recommending two things. First, that we refuse, and second, that the existing hardscape be restored to green space, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
I'm very sorry, I don't think anyone heard you.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so the assertion that we only get an improvement in green space if we approve the pad is not accurate. What would get us the most green space is to approve the staff recommendations, correct?
For the front of the property, yes.
Thank you. I don't know who can answer this. We have no legal means to tie a parking pad to an electric vehicle and say that you can only use this for an electric vehicle and it can only ever be used for an electric vehicle. We examined that and we're told we can't do that. Is that correct?
Through you, Chair, to the councillor, currently in our bylaw, there is no exemptions to allow for an electric vehicle where they don't meet the requirements under Section 918, Chapter 918.
I'm asking a slightly different question. There may be someone from legal. We did try to see if there was a path where you could say, in order to get this parking pad, you can only park electric vehicles on it. And we were told effectively there is no way to write that rule, because when the property transfers or if someone buys or sells the car, the city can't encumber the type of car ownership to the property. Correct?
I'm not aware of that.
Well, that's what legal told us. Oh, is there a lawyer in the room? There is. I've got legal thoughts, he's saying.
Right.
So I was correct?
Yes, you were.
Okay, thank you very much. There you go. Remember stuff that nobody cares about. Okay. My staff questions have been
I
asked.
have a question for staff.
Go ahead, Councillor Matlow.
Following Councillor Perks' question regarding whether or not we can tie a parking pad to having an electric vehicle to whoever the relevant member of staff would be, has the city developed a policy to ensure that residents who want to have an electric vehicle and no longer have a gas guzzling car have the opportunity to, if they don't have a driveway or front pad parking? Have we passed any policies to ensure that cables can safely go across the sidewalks?
That's not the way to do it.
Have we done anything to ensure that that opportunity is there for those who want to make a more environmentally friendly decision?
I know the answer to this one.
No, thank you.
Through you, Chair, to the councillor, speaking just plainly for Chapter 918 of the Toronto Municipal Code, there is currently, as I mentioned before, there's no exemptions allowed for electric vehicles. The city does have an electric vehicle strategy. I can't speak to that aspects of it, though.
Therefore, if this resident, for example, didn't want to drive a car with combustion engine and wanted to have an electric vehicle, but doesn't have a place to park at his property, what are his options in the city of Toronto? Like if he parks on the street, unless he's part of a, one of the streets with a pilot, for example, where he has direct access to a charger, what is he to do in this scenario? Like, where do we leave him?
Through you, Chair, to the councillor. The city, again, I can't speak to the full aspects of the electric vehicle strategy, but I know that, certainly expanding the opportunities for having on-street charging stations is certainly one of the options that the city is looking at.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Through you, following up on Councillor Perks and Councillor Matla's questions, to legal, we do not have the means or the ability to mandate or require the type of vehicle, i.e. electric, that would be parked on the parking pad. Is that correct?
That's correct.
But so what? Like, isn't that the obvious question that follows? It's like, okay, as we just heard from, I guess, transportation staff, there's not actually a pathway right now available for somebody absent front yard parking to be able to charge an electric vehicle at their house right now. Correct? All right, sorry, let me also, like, all the belts and suspenders, yes, if you have parking that's permitted and stuff, but in this particular instance, that option is not available on this property for this resident as the staff recs are presented.
So where there's no parking identified that meets the requirements of the zoning bylaw or through Chapter 918, that's correct, Councillor.
And so it would seem we have a deputy and a resident here who is coming and would like to lease an electric vehicle, but by Councillor Perks' logic, because we cannot legally require that this gentleman lease an electric vehicle, then the argument is invalid.
Through you, Chair, to the councillor. So what we can permit is if they meet all the requirements for front yard parking, they would be able to get a parking pad with electric vehicle charging station. Where they don't meet the requirements of that bylaw of Chapter 918, which is a council approved bylaw, then through transportation services. No.
So your view, actually, it's not really whether it's an electric vehicle or not. It's do they meet the tests of, can I just speak without you speaking or no? Okay, yeah, I know. Yeah, you can't help yourself. So for you, it's actually not really about the type of vehicle. It's just whether or not it meets the merits of the bylaw.
Through Chair to the councillor, yes, that's correct.
But a reasonable conclusion would be if you're trying to have an electric vehicle, you actually can't have one if you don't meet the bylaw. But it's not about the electric vehicle per se.
I guess through you, Chair, to the councillor, what we're here today is determining an appeal for somebody who's refused for front yard parking.
So let me ask you this then. Does 63 Hammersmith meet the physical requirements for a front yard parking pad?
Through you, Chair, yes, this location does meet the physical requirements for front yard parking. It didn't meet the polling requirement, however, though.
Right, which wasn't my question, but I'm going to follow up. If not for a negative poll result, would the owner be free to build a front yard parking pad on this property, whether or not he wants an electric vehicle or not? They would be free to do that had the poll results been met.
Yes.
Okay, and last questions here. Can you remind us of the polling results here? How many were in support and how many were in opposition?
So we had, there was 34 in support, 25 opposed, and then there were 9 spoiled ballots.
So 9 spoiled ballots. If those weren't received and counted in the poll, the results would have been positive. Is that fair to surmise?
So if it had been just 34 in support, 25 against, yes, it would have been a positive.
And it would have cleared the threshold for the number of responses to be a valid poll?
Yes, that's correct, Councillor.
And it meets all of the technical requirements for front yard parking?
It meets all the eligibility requirements under Chapter 918.
So it wouldn't be here if it wasn't for 9 spoiled ballots?
Yes, that's correct.
That seems silly. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Councillor Fletcher.
No light, no light. There we go. Just on this, no, I am good. I can hear myself in the big room. Just to be clear, there's a test, and like any rule, you meet the test, you get it. You don't meet the test, you can appeal it. Do I have that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And you're from Transportation Services, but when we're looking at front pad parking, there are other things when we've had a report that are in front pad parking. Is anybody here from Public Realm Planning? Because that is something that's not part of the test, but it's something that's in the report when we asked for that about front pad parking, and should it just be automatic? Because of the Public Realm issues, the removal of parking spaces from the street, the privatizing of public parking, and in particular, kind of the rhythm of the street. And I'd like somebody to answer that question. If they can. And if they can't, I'm sure you remember, Councillor Perks. Apparently not, but there's many more factors involved, including planning factors outside of just the regular test about front yard parking. This is the ultimate test, and the rule is you can make an appeal, correct?
So yes, Councillor, there is an opportunity to
And
make
this
an
is where
appeal.
the appeal takes place, correct?
Yes, that's correct, Councillor.
And the committee votes on that, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And that's the end of that, correct? One way or another. And could you maybe refresh for the next meeting on some of the issues around front yard parking, whether we're paving over, particularly in areas with flooding, the streetscaping, public realm issues that aren't necessarily a transportation matter?
So through you.
Or have somebody come and do that, because I'm not going to ask you, because it's not, I don't want to put you in an unfair position for that.
Okay.
But I'd like to have that.
Okay.
I'd like to have that, Chair. It was quite robust approach, and then,
You want someone to come and answer your question regarding,
not now,
Not now,
because I
okay.
don't want to hold everything up, but I think it's important that the newer councillors, this has been a debate for a minute. I'll speak when time
Okay.
comes.
any other questions to staff? Seeing none, speakers on this item? Councillor Perks?
Thank you. I'm going to be moving the staff recommendations, which are 1, to deny or to not approve the request, and 2, to require that to prevent unauthorized parking, the owner restore a section of the paved area to green space, et cetera, et cetera. I feel like I have to do this once a year. The origin of the parking pad restrictions in the former city of Toronto has 2 pieces. The first piece came from the water department, because we are spending literally billions of dollars building tanks and tunnels under our beaches to hold storm water. And the storm water is generated by hard surfaces. So the water department recommended to council that we stop approving so many park pads. That's one of them. The second, as Councillor Fletcher's line of questioning was starting to get to, was an urban design issue. Neighborhoods are better, more walkable, more safe when the cars stay on the road, rather than having every property have cars going back and forth. We actually go to some trouble to line up the fronts of buildings and put green space between the fronts of buildings and sidewalks to create a good and pleasant urban space. It's a key planning principle. It's why the planning department weighs in every time we review the permit parking regulations. So we have two pressing public policy issues that say we should not be building parking pads. However, in the machinations at City Council, they always saw it off. Some parts of the city it's allowed, some it's not allowed, and some there's this elaborate application process. None of that is the result of thinking about good public policy. It's about different city councillors having different views. And unfortunately, individuals like the applicant here today, who are in that gray area where they're possible, but only under certain conditions, get caught. And they pay these application fees, they go through this process, they do design, and then they wind up here caught between those of us who think we should listen to the water department saying we need to have less going into our storm sewers, and the planning department saying we need better streetscapes, and those who just think whatever it takes, give constituents a place to park their car. And that battle goes on, and it's unfair. And I'm apologetic that the constituents get caught. But there is no argument to be made that there is a public benefit in granting this pad. There's a private benefit only. We do not provide gas stations on everyone's front lawn, nor should we provide charging stations on everyone's front lawn. What our actual plan is, and it's in our climate plan, is to gradually build out charging infrastructure using parking lots that we own through the Parking Authority, on street that we do with Toronto Hydro, and requiring new developments and strip malls and so on, whenever they come in, to build publicly accessible charging infrastructure. You build an infrastructure. You don't grant these as individual private gifts. So we've seen that there is no environmental benefit to granting the pad. There is a benefit if we refuse it and take the staff recommendations to get more green space. We've seen that there are good public policy reasons generally to turn parking pads down, and for those reasons, I'm commending to you the staff recommendations to refuse.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Amadou.
By the way, Councillor Bradford, will you be moving the, okay. I appreciate what Councillor Perks had to say, and I'm in no disagreement with Councillor Perks with respect to our overall strategy and position with respect to building for the greater good and planning our city in a way that will accommodate electric vehicles with a wider strategy. But we haven't got there yet. We've actually been very slow on it. And there are residents throughout our city who would like to have an opportunity now to transition to having an electric vehicle. And we have not done a good enough job for a very long time to make sure that they can feasibly do it. And we need to do better on that. And I'm hearing that there's a resident before us today who would like to do that as soon as possible. You know, when we plan for the entire city, we can only plan in generality, and we don't always consider each individual's needs, because that's impossible when you create wider public policy. But even when you create public policy for the greater good, there is context to consider from time to time for individuals' needs, because the collective is a group of individuals. And in this individual's circumstance, he played by the rules. He did everything he was asked to do. And if you actually look at the physical requirements under the bylaw, he met them all. There's no additional curb cut. There are no trees being fallen. He's not removing green space, and in fact, he's committed to increasing the green space at the rear, working with his neighbor. He's doing everything he can. He's going through hurdle after hurdle to do what so many of his other neighbors have already done and have already successfully achieved. And for this individual and his family, he's saying, if I've met all the requirements, why am I the one to lose out when everybody else has been able to, frankly, have parking pads without having electric vehicles in many cases? So where has he failed? I don't see him failing at all. It was the process that failed. The physical requirements were met. Even the popularity contest was met. But there were some spoiled ballots that meant that on a technicality, the threshold of the response rate was not met. That's something that he could not control. So he did everything right. He's gone above and beyond to make commitments to make this the greenest possible plan that he could. But because of a technicality, it will have an adverse impact on this individual and his family and his ability to have an electric vehicle and not have what so many of his other neighbors have already requested and received. I don't think that's right. I mean, I'm talking about natural justice. I just don't think that's fair. So I agree with Councillor Perks that on a wider scale, as far as public policy affecting our entire city, I can't disagree with Councillor Perks. I actively agree with him. But we can't forget the context of an individual circumstance, because that's why we have these appeals. Do you realize that we ignore warrants all the time? We ignore staff advice, who we respect, but we ignore it all the time if we don't believe that they've really recognized the context on the ground in our communities. That's our job. And we're having an appeal process today to allow an individual to come and say, listen, I get it. I get the general policy that you have, but it didn't consider my circumstance. And that's what I'm hearing from this individual. And I agree with him. So I would submit to you that it's only fair to recognize that, yes, 9 times out of 10, go ahead, deny the parking pad. But he did everything he was asked to do. He did everything right. His neighbors supported him. But there were a few ballots that were spoiled that are really the delta between him achieving his ability to move forward to having an electric vehicle at his own home and widening the amount of green space that currently exists, or having to go home and tell his family that he just wasn't heard today. And I disagree with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Matlow. Councilor Fletcher, 5 minutes.
Well, I don't know what, I'm just going to read from the report from Urban Design on front yard parking. Front yard parking erodes the quality of neighborhood streetscapes as portions of front yards and city boulevards are paved to accommodate parking pads for automobiles. By increasing paved areas, front yard parking reduces the opportunity to provide a greater proportion of soft landscaping and tree planting. The official plan includes a number of policies that discourage front yard parking in the city's residential neighborhoods. In Chapter 3, Building a Successful City, Policy 3.1.2.2E states new development will locate and organize vehicle parking, vehicular access, service areas, and utilities to minimize their impact on the property and on surrounding properties, and to improve the safety and attractiveness of adjacent streets, parks, and open spaces by limiting the surface parking between the front face of a building and the public street or sidewalk. In Chapter 4, Land Use Designations, Policy 4.1.5G requires development in established neighborhoods will respect and reinforce the existing physical character of each geographic neighborhood, including in particular prevailing patterns of rear and side and setbacks and landscaped open space. So the fact is, Urban Design has commented, as Councillor Perks said, many times. We're down to one small piece. I particularly I don't think I voted that staff could. I think front yard parking in general is something that many residents have been concerned about for a long time, that in certain wards, like mine, I have a moratorium. Well, Councillor Perks has a moratorium. I'm sure Councillor Sachs has a moratorium. There's many moratoriums on front yard parking because of the issues of, sorry, did you say that's nonsense, Councillor?
Not talking to you.
Oh,
Or about what you're saying.
oh, thank you, because you were a former planner here, so I'm sure you wouldn't say that about urban
I will
design.
speak to the plan, so.
So the, what I really want to say is that there's a bigger picture for front yard parking, and it's been a debate for a long time. This was a staff recommendation in order to have this a citywide bylaw rather than just a Toronto and East York bylaw. And unfortunately, as you were able to do, Councillor Matlow, by making it 30 kilometers only in Toronto and East York, at that time, the members of this council were not allowed to have a policy that established in Toronto and East York. And I think that was wrong because very built up, dense area. And I also know about flooding in all of these neighborhoods and have had people from those neighborhoods come to talk about what's happened to their homes. So there's many things to balance here. This is the rule. We get to make that decision, and I think everybody just needs to respect, and I will respect whatever this committee decides, but this is just the rule in the process, period, full stop.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Fletcher. Any other speakers? Councillor Bradford?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Through you, I have a motion to adopt the alternative recommendations included in the report in front of us and to facilitate the approval of front yard parking here at 63 Hammersmith. As we heard in the discussion, as we heard in our answers from staff, 63 Hammersmith checks all the boxes in terms of eligibility requirements for front yard parking, and the only problem was 9 spoiled ballots on the polling. That's why it's kind of silly that it's in front of us here today. It actually wouldn't be here if it wasn't for 9 spoiled ballots. It had a favorable poll. It meets all of the technical requirements. And I just think it's unfortunate that this is the sort of stuff that takes the time up here at the committee and frankly makes, you know, a really frustrating experience for residents with local government. I appreciate the efforts of the owner here to speak directly with his neighbors and to discuss their concerns, and the latest submission here with the removal of the hard surfaces in the back, I think responds to some of those concerns. I've heard from my colleagues on a couple of pieces here as it relates to urban design and as it relates to stormwater management. And I know that some of us are new around this, this committee, so I just wanted to read from the 2017 report on this. And it says that the cumulative effects of paved parking pads have a minimal effect on the total volume of stormwater runoff on a citywide basis. That's mainly because the total number of licensed parking pads across the city was relatively small in comparison to driveways. Parking pads contribute to 0.7% of stormwater runoff. Driveways, of course, are 17%. And we've had subsequent reports, I believe in 2021, that went to IEC that talked about this. And, you know, Councillor Perks will talk about stormwater runoff. There's a lot of technologies that exist today that deal with permeability, that deal with soil compaction. He's shaking his head no, but that's actually true. So, and staff reflected that in 2021 comments here at this committee and then at IEC when it came forward to provide a pathway for front yard parking in Beaches East York when we lifted the moratorium. So the challenge I think that this city council has, and this community council in particular, with respect to views on front yard parking, views on cars, car ownership, and it gets into the urban design piece a little bit. This idea that people aren't going to have vehicles or using cars here in Toronto, that we have more walkable neighborhoods. All of that is good. I agree with more walkable neighborhoods. You know, I ride a bike year round. I take transit, I drive a car, but it's about optionality. And we want to have optionality for people to facilitate, you know, a high quality of life in the city of Toronto. As we move and transition to electric vehicles, we are confronted with this uncomfortable reality that, like, we literally don't have a pathway for people, you know, whether David wants to actually lease an electric vehicle or not, he doesn't have that option. that option is not provided to them because we're not just running cords over sidewalks. There's major accessibility issues with that. And here is a site that hits all of the requirements from a technical perspective to have front yard parking. We know the technology exists with respect to cisterns, soil compaction, managing stormwater runoff, which is a fraction of a percentage of our stormwater challenges here in the city of Toronto. And it's only in front of us today because of 9 spoiled ballots. I always laugh, Councillor Fletcher pointed out that I used to work in city planning. There's a lot of diverse views in an organization that has 500 staff people from across the city, but I always had a chuckle when people talked about the urban design impact of front yard parking, the idea of a vehicle in front of a house. Oh, where do you think it normally is? Like it's on the street, 6 feet over in front of the house. So I always thought that was a funny sort of argument to tee up the urban design impact of cars parked in front of houses, because if you walk up and down Hammersmith or Kenilworth or Kippen Davie, any of these streets south of Queen Street in the beach, they are bumper to bumper cars in front of houses. And then the last thing, Councillor Perks made the point about, oh, there's zero public benefit to this. Well, we have a goal around electric vehicles. We have climate change goals. This facilitates that for one household. And that's certainly more than the city is doing right now in terms of facilitating that transition. And lastly, when you take a car off the street out of the permit parking, that creates additional spaces for people in a parking area that already has 110% subscription. So there's a public benefit to that too. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any questions on Councilor Bradford's motion?
Yes, Councillor Bradford, that report you're quoting from, you will know that it recommended ending the program and no longer accepting any applications for front yard parking.
I'm reading.
Sorry, you couldn't hear?
Go ahead.
The recommendations from 2017 have since changed in what went to IEC, where we lifted the moratorium in Beaches East York. But that is just language from the report speaking specifically to what we talk about as stormwater impacts, where the report says, yeah, very minimal and can be mitigated.
Yeah, but that report did that, and then we were overridden from our committee by the Stranding Committee. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead. Councillor Matlow?
You're doing a good job, Chair, in this one.
The most time we spent on one item. Go ahead.
Yeah, you should have been here years ago. The mayor's.
A debate.
Off, please. Hello, sorry. I just would like the mic to go off so nothing gets caught in my asides. Could you please
They're just really trying their best over there because of some technical issues we're having here, so.
There you go, you're off now.
Okay, we're good now.
Say whatever you want.
Time, Councillor Matt. Go ahead.
Councillor Bradford, if I hear you correctly, and in the spirit in which you move your motion, you're not actually wading into the ongoing, long-standing debate over if one should favor or oppose parking pads. I'm not actually hearing much of a difference between us as far as all of our interest to have more soft landscaping. All of us want a more environmentally friendly Toronto. All of us want Transform TO to actually move faster than it ever has been before. All of us agree on that. You're speaking to the context of this individual household and the fact that they met all the requirements, and it was simply a technicality that would lead them to go home and tell their family that they were not able to get the pad today.
That's correct, yeah. Check. Mike? Oh, okay, it's coming.
I feel like we're being punished.
Here we go.
Check. Mine's back on.
You got it?
How can we electrify our streets?
I got the thumbs up. Yeah,
that's correct, Councillor Matlow, and I would just reiterate that this application meets all of the technical requirements. It will result in net more soft landscaping on the site than is there today. And it's only in front of this committee because of 9 spoiled ballots, which actually doesn't change the outcome of the majority of the folks on the street that voted in favor of front yard parking at this location on Hammersmith. Thanks.
Okay, any further questions for Councillor Bradford on his motion? Seeing none, thank you. Okay, so we're gonna vote on Councillor Bradford's item first. All those in favor, what?
Mine was moved first.
But it has more options.
Oh, okay, gives more options to the commission.
Yeah, recorded vote. The clerk's going to do recording vote.
Although, just wait. Yeah, I just have to wait till the mic's on so it gets recorded. All those,
There we go.
all those in,
Can't hear you either.
He'll stop pressing the button. He presses it.
They're gonna do this to us every time there's a parking.
Okay, good.
all those in favor of Councillor Bradford's motion, Councillor Moyes, Councillor Bradford, and Councillor Matlow. All those opposed? Deputy Mayor Malik, Councillor Bravo, Councillor Fletcher, Councillor Sachs, and Councillor Perks. That loses. On the item as amended, or on the item, to adopt the item, do you want to do it as a recorded vote
Yes.
as well?
No, not recorded.
Nope.
All those in favor of the items as amended? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. The next item is item 11.16. That was held by Councillor Bradford. Are you able to proceed on this item?
Yes.
Okay, changes to business improvement area board of management. I think there is a motion.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. I just want to add one additional individual to the Danforth Village BIA.
Okay. The staff have it? Yep. All those in favor? All opposed? As amended, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Next item is item TE 11.19, 950 King Street West, construction staging area. Deputy Mayor Malik, I think you have a.
Good luck.
Okay, got the thumbs up.
All right, thank you. I do have a motion on this item, and I guess it'll be up on the screen. And this, to forward this item to City Council without recommendation. And an additional part of the motion is to direct the General Manager of Transportation Services to investigate the feasibility of alternative options for the proposed pedestrian and cycling closure on Strawn, the retention of both pedestrian and cyclist facilities, and also potentially reducing the duration of the proposed closures on the public right-of-way, and to report back on that to the March meeting of City Council. As was mentioned earlier, hearing from deputants and also the seriousness with me and my office have been taking on this particular request. This is to allow us time to come forward with better options and alternatives for how the staging and construction on this really important development can come online and can be as successful as possible for the neighbors in the community, as well as what we're achieving here when it comes to building our neighborhood and contributing to increasing affordable housing in our downtown.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Carried. The next item is TE 11.22, accessible parking spaces, held by Councilor Fletcher. Are you able to?
Yes, I'm able to release that and move the recommendations. Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor?
Where is there, sorry, which one are you on?
22.
22, fine, go ahead.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Next item is item 11.23, pay and display parking various streets. That was held by somebody.
I'm still waiting for staff to give me wording of the amendment that they want. I'm waiting for transportation, and I haven't got it yet.
Okay.
So I keep being told it's coming, so please hold it down.
Okay, well, T 11.29, use of Nathan Phillips Square for various events. That was held by Councillor Fletcher, I believe.
Yeah, but I have a recommendation
Okay.
to forward the item to City Council without recommendation. There were some questions about particularly item 4 and the amplified noise, and this will give us an opportunity to work through those details.
Okay, all those in favor of the recommendation? Opposed? Carried. TE 11.31, Shaftesbury Avenue access to Yonge Street. Yep, we have 2 speakers on that item. Thank you for that. Debbie Briggs, are you here? You're online. Debbie Briggs, are you here? Okay, Don Huff, are you here? Don Huff, Echo Strategy? No? Okay, Councillor Sachs?
Yes, I want to move the recommendations that I think they're all there now. We've been working with staff for a long period of time. Yes, okay, I think it's all there. So briefly, this is a case where the TTC elevator has blocked off part of Shaftesbury for several years now that the TTC is going to be 2 more years before they finish the elevator. Hard to understand why they need 4 years to build an elevator, but in the meantime, the residents have had a very difficult time exiting their neighborhood because they can only go out to Yonge Street. They can't go north, they can't go south, they can't go east. They can only go out to Yonge Street, and they can't get onto Yonge Street except where there's a light, except with great difficulty, and the only light is at Shaftesbury, and the TTC construction has blocked their access to the light at Shaftesbury. So they have been trying to turn onto Yonge Street at uncontrolled intersections with constant delays. So thank you to staff. I've been working with Nathan Sham and his team at great length to say, all right, and with the Summerhill Residents Association. So how do we turn this, how do we make this work for the next 2 years? And at the suggestion of the Residents Association is a supporting letter from them. Staff have agreed that we will turn the one remaining lane, make it westbound instead of eastbound, so that the people in the neighborhood can use the light at Shaftesbury and Yonge to exit their neighborhood. They tell me that it's easier to get into the neighborhood at an uncontrolled intersection, very difficult to get out. The 2 deputies were simply going to support this proposal. So as long as I'd like to move the recommendations in my letter as revised with the advice from staff.
All those in favor of opposed? Carried. Okay, so we're gonna go to new items. First one being amending parking regulations on Abel Street between Queen Street West and Sudbury Street. Are there any deputants here to speak to this item? Seeing none, Councillor Bravo.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move the recommendations in my letter, which allow for delivery and garbage vehicles access in this area, in the commercial loading zone area.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item is amending parking regulations on Sterling Road to prohibit standing on west side. Any deputants in the room or online? Seeing none, Councillor Bravo.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move the recommendations in my letter allowing for deliveries to business and the restoration of a sign removed by construction.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Parking amendments on Alma Avenue. Any deputants in the room or online? Seeing none. Councillor Bravo.
I'd like to move the recommendations in my letter, Chair.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. The next item is from me. Accommodating affordable housing and retail space at 1 Sumac Street. Any deputants in the room? Seeing online? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And I believe there's another one that Councillor Sachs Thank you. 1 Bloor Street West Construction Staging. Any deputants in the room or online? We do have a deputant in the room. You want to speak to it? You have 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm not sure if the mic is on or not. My name is Mary Ellen Bench. I'm here as counsel at Denton's, representing Ms. Rahi. Unfortunately, we became aware that this might come to committee yesterday. Councillor Sachs was kind enough to share a copy of the report this morning. The recommendation is something that we think is appropriate, but we have not been able to get instructions from our client yet because we didn't have the report until during this meeting. So most of the recommendations reflect the current reality in terms of the owner of the property, the receiver interest, but we are still awaiting those instructions. And as I said, those conditions appear to be carryovers of previous conditions, so we think that they are fine. Wanted to put that on record. We have had discussions with Councillor Sachs about 2 matters that are addressed in the conditions relating to the hoarding around the site and replacing that with chain link fence. We are fine with that as long as we can ensure that from a safety perspective that we have someone attest that that is fine. So we need to have a consultant review that. The concrete pump itself has been an issue, and the enclosure around the concrete pump does need some work, and we are exploring options in terms of meeting those requirements. Those are the issues that relate to this matter that are going to be addressed here. And then there are other issues going on with the site that we will speak to Councillor Sachs and city staff about. But for purposes of today, we think we can support what is in the staff report. That's the best I can say given the lateness of receiving it.
Okay. Thank you. I know you have to leave very soon, but go ahead, Councillor Sachs.
To my colleagues, I'm asking that this matter go to council without recommendations. It only came to me yesterday. There are some unresolved issues. So that's what I'm asking, is that we send it to council without recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
All right, and on I don't know if this is working. On the last matter, I have just this minute. Whoops. Did I do something wrong? Sorry, so we're finished this one. What do you want me to do on paying this one? Okay. I know everybody doesn't want to come back to deal with this.
No, we're not coming back at all.
No.
Not at all.
All right.
Not even a little bit.
Hang on, I'm just trying to, I just got the recommendations. All right, I'll try again. I will send you another motion. Hold on.
Do you want to defer to the next council meeting, TYCC meeting?
Is there anybody here from TPA?
Is Toronto Parking Authority here?
All right, give me 2 minutes. Everybody, just give me 2 minutes. Let me try this one more time. Okay.
On the last item. 23. There's no other items, right? Just this, yeah.
No, hang on.
Yeah, that's the last item.
Chris, when Gord used to chair these meetings, they'd go on and on and on and on. You figured something out. Incredible.
We passed that already. Efficiency is my middle name.
Sorry. It seems that all the efforts by staff this morning have not resulted in something the clerk can accept, so we'll have to defer this to the next meeting.
Can I suggest that we remove your warden from this?
No, because it doesn't solve the problem. We're just going to have to defer the whole thing because there's a conflict with the cycling infrastructure, right? They didn't work out the conflict with the cycling infrastructure. A number of these paid parking locations that are proposed are going to have to be taken out soon for cycling infrastructure. So putting in pay and display machines is just going to be a waste of money. Then the TPA did not sort out with the cycling people ahead of time how they're going to do it. We can either make it mobile only so that we're not putting in infrastructure that has to be torn out, or we have to wait till we get the problem properly worked out with staff. So I was
Can't defer this to council.
apparently it's delegated, can't be deferred to council.
Yeah.
Diane, I'm very sorry I disagree with you on this one.
Okay.
Why would we put in machines that have to be taken out and then make?
Council is
Yeah.
delegation,
That's right.
so we can't send it forward because they send it back to us because we have the.
So if we council. Okay, the clerk's just saying to me that, yes, we can defer 23.
Okay, well.
But also it impacts item 24.
That's two separate.
Two separate, but why do we need to reopen it then?
I'm not sure she doesn't want to move.
Okay, so staff is saying, okay, I got some clarity. So staff is saying perhaps Councilor Sachs. So the clerks is saying that 24 is non-delegated and 23 is. So perhaps you can move your item on item 24 instead of 23. And then you could actually, because 24 is going to council.
But 24 isn't my problem.
I know that, but perhaps you can, because they both pay and display related, maybe you can move your item at council on item 24.
Well, I can for those changes, but not the ones in my ward, right? So this proposal is going to interfere with creating planned cycling infrastructure. So that's why I wanted to defer, but it doesn't affect Councillor
I'm on
Perks.
24.
Right, yours is passed.
Okay, I still disagree.
This Councillor,
Okay, so you okay for me to defer this?
If you want to.
Okay, I'm going to defer it to the next meeting, please.
is Councillor Bravo and Councillor Matlow okay with it because their ward is impacted?
You have to pay Alejandra, this affects your ward.
Sorry, Council.
You know.
Interfere with the cycling infrastructure, we'll force them to
20
tear the same machines out.
Passed already, not in 23.
At 23. They said they were going to have it solved for me, but it's not solved.
Oh, my God, help me.
We should probably confer not like this.
Recess for 2 minutes?
Yeah, can we recess for 5 minutes?
Yeah, can we,
Let's just
2 minutes.
extend 5 extra minutes, recess for 2.
Okay, recess for 2 minutes. Where's Matlow? Talk to Matlow about it too. Okay, we're good to go. Okay, so T 11.23, pay and display. Oh, okay. We're good to go? Okay, Councilor Perks, may I have a motion to extend the meeting? All those in favor? Opposed, carried. So T 11.23, pay and display parking various streets. Delegated. Councilor Sachs?
Move the staff recommendations, and Councillor Bravo and I are going to do a member's motion for council.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, carried.
Thanks,
You know-
everybody, for your help.
You know what? I actually have a slight amendment of my own. I need, you wish. I need to reopen that one sumac item.
Okay. So that would be item 35?
Yeah. Motion to open, you're open. All those in favor, opposed, carried. I'd like to change the report back date from June to July. Is that correct, Edward? As per staff's request? Okay.
Okay, we have to prepare a motion.
Do you?
Yeah.
Just change the report back
We
to
can't,
June.
so we have to do it as a motion, because
Okay.
the fact is that it's the Rex, you would have to give us a revised letter, so.
Do I need to do that, or you're good to?
See you, Diane. Thanks.
You know what I mean? God. That's privilege for you, privilege. Yeah, I know, that's why. Oh, yeah. Yes, thank you. Thank you.
What was the date, sorry?
July
July,
2024.
do you have a specific date?
Do you have a specific date, Edward?
Sorry, no, I was just typing it up now, so,
You have to retype the motion.
yeah, what is it? I need to know what the date is of the motion, I don't want to. July 10th, okay. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
No, I have to do it as a motion because the fact is I can't do a revised report at this point in time, or revised letter, so. Just need you to do that. July 10th, right? Yeah. Almost there.
No worries. Thank you for. Okay, we're good? Let me do it. Okay, we have the staff has been gracious enough to prepare a new amendment. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. I gotta read this stuff. We have to do the bills. How many bills do?
Make sure that make sure I have the right one. Oh,
I think the clerk's
I know.
yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Okay. that Bill 158 to 163 and 165 to 167, 180, and 181 prepared for the February 21st, 2024 meeting 11 of the Toronto and East York Community Council be declared as bylaws and passed subject to section 22.6.9 of the City of Toronto Act 2006. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. That confirmatory bills to confirm the legislative proceedings of the Toronto and East York Community Council acting under delegated authority to meeting 11 on February 21st, 2024 be declared as bylaws and passed subject to section 226.9 of the City of Toronto Act 2006. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Great job. Thank you.